Hello, hello. And you're listening to an episode of Into the Nothing with your absolute favorite host in the whole entire world, Patrice Douglas. Thank you for joining me. And my special guest, my beautiful guest today is Elika Moses. Holy shit. It's going to be a cracker of an episode. You, Elika, I just feel like we have so much to talk about. There's so much to talk about, but when I was tuning into myself and going, what is it that Elika really inspires in me and reminds me of the stuff that I've done in my past? And there's this word of just courage. Like, you are just fucking courage embodied. And for everyone who's listening, can you just give like just whatever feels true for you in this moment, like a little rundown, just a few words on who you are and what you're about?
Oh, thank you for that. Oh, actually, courage is such a beautiful way to put it. I am a mum, a wife, and I guess below that in the foundation, I am a woman. And I am deeply playing in the unknown right now. The bold moves, the trusting of where my soul really wants to take me. And that's been a 180 of my life. We've literally shifted our entire life to choose this path.
Let's talk about like the details of this path, because I think like it's I just feel like there's a lot of, like spiritual concepts that I love, like playing in the etheric, and I love playing in like in the nothing, obviously. And I also really love to talk about the tangible, like how you're moving in it, what you're doing, how you're moving, what's actually happening in Elika's life. Because you've just reminded me, like this morning when I was like just thinking about this conversation, you just reminded me of the fucking bold moves that I've made in my life, which almost cracked me up. And also, like, there was like, it was interesting when I started to feel into like the bold moves, because I started to feel like that there's a sense of guilt that came up, and I forget why, but in that moment I'm like, fuck, I actually trust myself to keep making these bold moves when they don't make sense, because they never fucking make sense. And you just like inspired me. Like, so cool to sit with another woman who is so fucking being about it, not just talking about it. And like a key example for me that really cracked me open to courage. I'm looking back now, I didn't know it at the time, was leaving my full-time corporate job, which I know that I'd love for you to share your story of in a moment. But yeah, for me, I was talking about it for ages, and I was always I was a creative director essentially at my last job, and it was at this huge property company in Sydney. And I was on like, I don't know, I feel like my human just wants to say like I was on a 6-figure wage and blah, blah. I'm like, fuck, I just said that, but I'm like, whatever. Anyway, and it was so great on so many levels, but fuck, my soul was just like, bow bow, this is a big motherfucking no. Like, I was looking around the room, and I'm just gonna say it for how I felt, like the clothes I was wearing to be in corporate, the feeling I had, like it was like soul sucking dry. Like, I'm gonna say this thing that I don't want to say, but like looking around the room, it was like a bunch of old white men. I just have to say that. And
relatable.
Yeah. And just like constantly trying to make the role more interesting and more engaging for myself by like asking for more money or taking on more than the role wanted. And I realized I did that in every job that I had. And all my managers always allowed me to grow and expand. And, where I could have been just a graphic designer, I suddenly was taking on like marketing email roles and stuff, because I'm like, more, there's got to be more. And I just got to the point where I'm like, Patrice, you need to go and do the more in your own entrepreneurial path, because then you can actually explore and feel free. And I talked about it for years, and I got so fucking done with talking about it, almost to the point that I think people thought that I did it before I'd done it, that point. So, and then to actually, and then to to do it, and it was a process of doing it, but to do it, when I didn't have any savings or anything, and that came with stress too. But yeah, just taking that bold move to fully let go of that corporate life, to dive into just really just freedom. And although there wasn't freedom at the beginning because I just carried so many habits from corporate life over, there actually I just created one, I just left one cage and just made myself another cage, really. But that's all part of the process too. But
Totally.
Can you talk me through, because I know you've been making some bold moves in like so many areas of your life, including, you know, leaving your job, you know, moving home, like taking your kids homeschooling. Like there's just some bold fucking moves where you're listening to your soul, really. Let's be clear. Let's go there. You're out of your mind and into your heart. So Elika, over to you. Tell your story of the courageous move.
It's so funny just listening to your story. Like, so many memories are popping up for me. Like, I spent just over 10 years in the corporate world, and most of that time with one company. So really, I mean, I've always been ambitious. I've always wanted to grow. And since I was young, I've always been told that, like, I'm a leader, you're going to be a leader, you're destined to be a leader. And I've always stood out in one way or another. And similar to you, when you're talking about your corporate world, like, I started in one role but ended up supporting two teams doing similar things, and I just kind of grew and grew and always gave more than what was expected of me because I love to, but also how draining that was, particularly moving into mum life and continuing that same ambitious, really must do it all approach while having babies at home, which was incredibly hard on the nervous system without even really realizing it at the beginning. So I had my daughter probably a couple of years into my corporate world and carried on for the better part of 8 years in this way of being. And similar to you, I was saying for a long time, I'm not meant to be here anymore. I'm not meant to be here anymore. I know I'm meant for more, even to the point where in my last role, I was an operations management analyst. Like, what the fuck even is that? Like, I can't even, I mean, it's really hard for me to comprehend now because I physically don't relate to any part of that. I mean, I was teaching people productivity and how to use 100% of their time all the time. And like, how, like, it was just like this, do, like fucking, and people were fizzled out. And there was so much resentment on me for being the one initiating the system onto 300 plus people when I was, I guess, the messenger for what the corporate company were expecting of people. And in this role, I had no idea what I was doing. I literally, when I took this job, I had been using this system, this operations management system. And when I stepped into the role, I was now going to teach the methodology, how to use the system. I was teaching the leaders how to lead the system. And the hilarious thing is I had no idea. I literally spent 6 months, my first 6 months of this particular role in the company, figuring it all out myself. And now I look back and I'm like, that was my own initiation for now what I'm doing and figuring it all out myself, but following my soul's path. And so 2 years ago, with one of my very first mentors, I was having some time on my own, and I did some oracle cards, which I don't play around with too much now, but back then they were just such a beautiful tool for me. And I said, should I leave my job? And the card was yes. And I was like, oh my gosh, no, I can't. Like, I being honest, I was the breadwinner in the family, bringing in, like, again, my human wants to be like, oh, I'm 6 figures. But that's essentially what it was. I was enabling my family to be where we wanted to be. And we had a mortgage and all the things that come along with being in a family and choosing maybe what I would call mainstream, the path that we're sort of invited into as we grow up. And I reached out to my mentor and I was like, this is the card I pulled. What am I going to do? Like, it says leave. And she sort of said, you know, you need to do it at a time when you feel ready, even though, like, maybe that's what your soul's calling you forward. So I was similar to you. I kept saying, like, I'm going to leave. Like, this is, and for 2 years. And at the end of last year, it got to the point where I was so out of alignment. Similar to you, I would look around and see the souls of others draining. Like, they were just reflecting to me my own soul draining. And I'm just needing to stop. I don't know why that keeps going off. There we go. Okay, I'm back. And this is not a reflection of those people. They were only reflecting to me what was happening within me. My soul was dying inside, essentially being more and more caged in, the clothes I was wearing, the choices that I got to make or not make, how I was able to speak, what I was able to say, and even to the point where I was applying for leadership roles to be a team leader as opposed to the leadership role that I was in, teaching and guiding leaders. And I got denied for every single one. I got to second interview stage and I missed out by like one little thing here or there for 5 different leadership roles. And as I handed in my resignation, I realized so clearly that yes, I potentially have always meant to be a leader, but it just didn't look the way that I expected it to look growing up in this corporate world. And I was just not ever meant to be a people leader in this way. And I feel like that comes with its own high horse that I had to pull myself off. And so in April, I can't believe it's April this year, but in April this year, or end of March, I left that corporate job. We sold our house in Hamilton in New Zealand and we moved to the Bay of Plenty, which is right by the beach. And for 6 months prior to that, I'd been saying that I just want to live by the beach. And for 2 years prior to that, the calling on my heart was to be by the ocean. Now we can literally walk 5 minutes up the road to the beach. And I mean, I literally don't, like, I hold, similar to you, when you're speaking about something, it's like I feel a lot of guilt about the way that I've done this. We created an amazing amount of capital in selling our house and we haven't bought another home. And so trusting that security is within me and not in the land that I may or may not have, or just trusting the whole move. My husband ended up leaving his job. We've both started to create our own businesses, and I look around almost every day now and I cannot believe that I am in this life that we've created, and every day it's an invitation to trust the unknown, to just trust the path that we're on. Like I don't know where anything's going to come from anymore, the abundance of this, that, or the other thing, material or immaterial, the love that I need, the community that we need. And yet every time I ask for it, it pops up. I was at the beach the other day, just kind of in my own world, having a dance on the edge of the water, and then a mum spoke to me and we ended up in conversation, and she's got a beautiful part of the community here, so sort of on the same vibe as us. And every time I trust and I ask for what I need, it just shows up, and maybe in a different way than I expect. But
Is it feeling really cool right now to reflect and just notice these key things that you've done? Like, isn't it so interesting to be in like a conversation and go, holy shit, in like a really short period of time, you are making moves that are actually in alignment with how you genuinely want to be in this life, rather than, and it's like, how did the unplugging happen for you? Like, I'm assuming you've been a kind of a, for want of a better word, a spiritual person for a while. Like, I guess for anyone who's listening, who's just like, how do you have that kind of faith? Or did it just get to the point where it was so uncomfortable to not do it and you were so done with how things were that you're just like, fuck it, I got to give it a go? Like, what was the turning point?
Yeah, I feel like there's a bit of both. So bit of backstory, I went to church for about 4 years when I was a teenager. It literally saved my life, being part of a youth group and around kids with and leaders with really great foundational morals and values, with the support that I needed that I was missing potentially at home. So grew up from about 14, connected to some kind of faith, left the church at about 17, 18, and since then kind of just navigated faith from within. Although I didn't really realize it was that until this last couple of years. The turning point for me in terms of the corporate role was definitely, it was so uncomfortable to not be able to be myself that I just didn't have a choice but to jump. The choice to sell our house, that was a little different. My husband and I ended up having a really heated conversation at the end of 2020. And I've sort of come to this place where my intuition leads us, and then Troy brings in this incredible safety, and he takes it really slow to get us to where we get to go. So it's kind of like I get the nudge, and then we have this beautiful yin and yang balance. I've realized that on reflection too. So I pushed and pushed in that conversation, and he ended up hitting the fridge and breaking 2 bones in his hand. And the hilarious nature of that is that conversation was me saying, we need to sell our house and we need to just pack up and go to the beach, because if we don't do it now, we're never going to fucking do it. And he was like, it's not, like his desire is deeply for safety and security. And I keep reflecting back to him. And, but in saying that, my intention from that conversation was the desperate need to get out of my job. So it didn't come from a higher place of trusting the next steps. It came from the fear and the grit of what I was feeling in my role. And I reflected back to him the other day, and we have this hilarious conversation all the time now where I'm like, isn't it funny that we're like doing the thing that we had this intense discussion about? And like he reflected back to me that, yeah, it is hilarious. And also we shifted through in the months after that happened, where he went through surgery, and honestly, he had broken metalware in his hand from the surgery. And so he ended up being off work for the better part of 6 months. And in that 6 months, we decided to leave our jobs, decided to sell our house. And from a really place where we actually had to slow the fuck down. I had to acknowledge how much Troy had done in our home while I was in the corporate world fighting for the money I thought I needed to create for our family. He was keeping our house afloat. And the dynamic that is quite common is that the male goes out and provides and the female does that, and our dynamic was completely the opposite. And so coming back to ourselves, taking time to slow down, my acknowledgement of just how much he does for our family, and really getting to sink into the gratitude of that and the allowance of what I was letting go of by staying in that role. And over many conversations coming to the point of faith and trust in this next move. And we went away on holiday, and I knew when we left on holiday that I was going to come back and resign. But over that week and a half or so, we sort of talked it out, and we spent a lot of time in fresh water down south and grounding and literally on the grass having conversations about what we were going to do. And then I went back to work, and I handed in my notice with 2 months notice instead of 1, so that it gave us time to make all the moves we got to make. And yeah, it was the shift, I guess, over those few months of it being more than just about the job, but being about where we were really, really meant to be. And again, we look around, and my daughter reflected to me the other day, she's like, Mum, it just feels like we're always on holiday. And I'm like, that's just our life now. We unconsciously and into consciously are creating a life by design where we don't feel like we need to escape anymore, and that has been a journey of faith, really, faith in the unknown. And I feel like that's my path now, is just to keep trusting the unknown, the nothing. And in the nothing is birth everything.
Wow. Oh my God. You're such an inspiration. Like I don't have kids, and yeah, I just, in another conversation that you and I have had with some in a mastermind around like your birth story and everything. And I just like, I don't have kids, but you're such an inspiration for me in terms of family, and like the choices that you're making, and what an incredible example you're being to your kids, of not just talking about what it is that you want to do, you're actually doing it. And I know, because I know you and we're in a mastermind together and we're friends, and you're doing like really deep internal work. You're doing like the emotional work, you're doing it's not like you're just like doing these things on a superficial level of like moving house. You're also simultaneously moving through a lot of fear and guilt and grief and shame, and also owning your joy and all of these things, which there's so many episodes of this podcast talking about emotions, and the one with Steffa, feel all there is to feel. And
yes.
And just there's such a theme of, allowing all of the emotions to move through so that we can keep coming back to this clean place. But so I just wanted to like preface, like, insert that into this conversation that, you're doing deep internal work simultaneously, and that's why your external reality is shifting the way it is, really, because it's coming from such a genuine place deep inside. I was even messaging a client this morning, it cannot be said enough. Like, so many things that I talk about are so simple, and they've been said by every sage, but like they cannot be said enough. Like everyone's trying to play, or so many people are trying to play an outside game in. Like, how can I shift my outside reality to make myself feel better? And it's just like, it is such an internal world, and taking the action, the courageous action. But it's like, you could have moved to that place and still not actually been doing the internal work, which meant you probably wouldn't be enjoying it. And you wouldn't be looking at your beautiful daughter when she's saying, Mom, life feels like a holiday. Like, what the fuck? What the fuck? How can, sorry, you go.
No, or like, even with that, it's not just my own deep work. It's like the relating with my kids, and the for me, it's been a process of letting love in and starting with that love being an internal place. And it was something that you said, like the freedom that comes with doing that emotional work and letting the emotions flow and letting, like, showing my kids, like at the moment they're not feeling as though this move has been as great at us. We keep saying it's the best decision we ever made, and for them, they're missing their friends, and we're in this process of creating a new community and trusting. Like for me, I don't want to force an opinion on them anymore. I've played in that space far too much for me now. We've been talking a lot about how they get to see what we believe and see what we do, and then make up their own minds about how they want to live their life. Let's see how I go when they get to teenagehood and really choose to make decisions for themselves. And the freedom that comes with showing them this way, like I keep saying I want to teach them, but actually how I teach them is by showing them, and the freedom that comes with crying in the car when I need to cry in the car, or being at the beach and dancing by myself and putting togs on that I might feel uncomfortable in, and actually liberating myself that way. My daughter is now in the space of liberating herself that way, and the freedom, like freedom is my deepest value. And while moving to the beach isn't necessarily freedom in itself, the beach to me is freedom. It's a representation of freedom that I stand for right now. But even when we first moved here, being able to accept that I created this freedom was really challenging, because I didn't feel it yet inside myself. I had to really sit with the fact that I've created this on purpose to be here, and can I take myself out of the cage? When you said about the corporate world, when we sold our house, we spent 6 months at my dad's house. He lives in a self-contained unit in his garage that he created because he's a carpenter, amazing carpenter, and we lived in his house. And for the first few months, I was just operating on autopilot the same way that I had done in the corporate world, but at home and with the same ways of being. And that 6-month pause where we were sort of, the kids got to still keep going to school, mostly with in between way things were moving in the country, and it kind of gave us room to breathe. And I know you're all about the pause, and like now on reflection, I'm like, how much space that gave us, so that when we got here, we got the opportunity to breathe it in and actually receive the fact that your environment makes a huge difference. And the environment that we are in here and what we've chosen to create here has been an internal shift. And it's also been an allowance of what we get to create for ourselves. Like, what do we choose in the choice of being here and receiving it all?
Yeah. It's something that I'd love to speak into more, because you know, it's such a passion of mine, and you've said the words a few times, the slowing down when you left your job, you know, allowed you to see how much Troy, your partner, had done in the household. And as you were like, and that's one of my favorite things about slowing down, is that we get to see clearly, because we're not so in the mind, we're not so in the busy, we're not so caught up in the chaos. And you know, it is such a fascinating process to have a rested nerve, to allow your nervous system to unravel and soften, to come into a rested nervous system. And it's still like this conscious choice of like slowly breathing every day, like tangibly 10 slow breaths, or one slow breath, that moment where you want to rush to the next thing, from going to the toilet to go and making the bed. Can you stop yourself when you pull your pants up and just take a breath to start to pattern interrupt yourself, and to show yourself that it's okay to pause? Because the magic in pausing and slowing down is infinite. What I'm being shown at the moment about relaxing, when you relax, you literally can just receive all the things you're asking for. You can actually come to a place where you're not actually taking action in the terms of the things you need to do. So there's that whole thing, that magical way of being that's coming through very clearly. But what I just want to come back to is this seeing clearly. We slow down, and suddenly there's so many stories we're attached to around that things aren't working, or that our parents hate us, or they, you know, and I slowed down and I'm just like, all I can feel is love. And this is a process. It's also been lots of tears and fear and anger, and then coming back to silence, and then stillness, and then, oh my God, back into fear, and then, oh my God, panic, and then, oh my God, can't breathe, anxious, I might have an anxiety attack, and then come back to breathe. Like, I want to do a chart of what it takes to slow down your nervous system. And it's literally, for anyone who's watching the YouTube video,
I know. I'm like, I'm laughing.
It's fucking crazy
so much.
It's
and
not
like,
it's not like this beautiful like an airplane ascending going into the air. It is literally like fucking bombs are dropping. But I just really loved when you said, you know, when you slowed down, you could actually see what Troy's actually doing in the home. And then also when you slow down, you start to see, oh my God, I'm actually doing enough.
Oh, yes. And it's so funny, like even with Troy now, he's in the hustle. So like we've kind of allowed this little, we're finding balance now in this new way of being. And even today, it's funny that you said that. I reminded him that he gets to slow down. Like he is working so hard in this he's doing NFTs and digital art, and he's an amazing artist. And he's and he hasn't worked for the better part of a year. So I think he's got this place now. He's like, I need to work. And we're in this, I mean, you know, the work we do where we're slowing down and we're allowing ourselves to pause and breathe and reflecting that to him has been incredible. And just even in the slowing down of the 6 months of us being out of our jobs and at my dad's house, and seeing the slowing down and what that brought for my parenting and what that brought for my kids, was that they actually got time to see their mum. We got time to have breakfast together. Like I have been busy. I rush all the time. Even the way I speak probably now is still quite fast. And I'm in this process. I mean, it's an incredible process to catch yourself in that and be like, okay, I can take a pause. In a conversation last week with our family, I reminded myself, I can take a breath before I respond. And I did. I actually said to them, I'm just going to check in with my body. And I took a breath. And in that moment, realizing how much it gifts you. And like you said, you can see clearly. Well, with my kids, I slow down now more than I ever have when they're hurt or when they need me. And don't get me wrong, it is like this, for anyone watching, like it's definitely a process, but slowly and surely you rise as you allow yourself to slow down. And so my parenting style has done a 180 in the way that I receive them and the way that I can, like, they're really busy and they're really loud and they're only reflecting my busyness and my loudness, which I love, but it's also been a lot for me to handle because I'm busy enough and loud enough for everyone in this family. So taking a pause, and actually the more I process my feelings and the more I allow myself to be loud with or without them, the more that I'm enabling them to go there, and I can actually slow down and hold space for so much more often the full expression of who my children, I'm actually feeling like the gratitude and the ability to hold that is incredible. And it has been, like, sitting here right now reflecting on it, it has been in the slowing down that I've been able to do that. The first 8 years of my daughter's life, she's 9 now, have been busy and fast and like keep up with mum. We would leave in my corporate job, we would be like boom, 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 breakfast, dress, like there was never any slowing down. Even if they were slowing down, like I had 1,001 things to do in that 1 hour of time before we left for school. And it would be like, you know, hustle out the door, hustle into school. No, I can't drop you off. I can't walk in the door with you. One day a week I would walk in with them. And like now we literally go for walks in the morning, and we all as a family, I'm rollerblading, yo. Like it's just the best thing ever to just slow down. And my daughter's like, I want to walk every day. And so we walk every day. Like,
two things just came up for me that I really want to share around the slowing down and the feeling the emotions, because there's two things. So it's like, I always think of us, we're inside, I guess, our soul, or even like this energetic bubble that is all ours. And it's like, what happens when we slow down and then there's all this, say, tension, friction, can't breathe in the body. And what happens is when we don't suppress it and we actually, because when we're trying to calm down, there's going to be all the stuff of all like the feelings and the emotions that haven't been felt that can't allow us to be in that peaceful place, which is the truth of who we are.
Totally.
And so that's why it's like, it's not just like you just don't go from calm to calm, you go from calm. And I feel like life wants us to just go, you're in here for the human experience. Like, let's feel all of it, and know you can still be connected to that peaceful presence that's the truth of who you are, in some, even if it's like by a thread, when you're in all of the fear, all of the guilt, all of the shame, or abandonment, whatever it is. But it's like, yeah, it's like when we start to breathe and come in, and then we just feel it, like all the shock and the panic come in the body. In even allowing it a little bit allows the space for it rather than constricting and suppressing it, and that just creates space for it to open up. We open up, I open up. And one is that then that can actually move when it's ready, and we realize how fucking powerful we are to be with capacity of like all the energy that wants to move in our body as time goes on. And that allows us to drop into peaceful presence, come back into it, because then it's actually very genuine. So it's very like true, embodied, deeply in the body feeling of being at peace. And then more tension comes up, and then you get fucking angry, and then you resist it, and then at a certain point you give into it. But then there's that other piece that you were talking about, where because you have allowed yourself to experience it, which is we're literally just feeling beings, like we're just literally just here for emotions, basically.
Yeah.
Then you can actually be with your clients, your partner Troy, you can be with your mom, you can be with your kids in better in all of that, and it doesn't hurt so much, and you don't want to suppress them so much, because you've actually been with it in yourself, and you have compassion and awareness and an embodied feeling of what it's like.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is like, I feel like this is a key to life right here.
So huge. Like, I want to share an experience.
Please.
Last year, this is actually really uncomfortable for me to share, but I was like trusting that this is here. Last year, in our first experience of being asked to be stayed at home for a period of time, we obviously were all at home as a family unit for probably the longest amount of time we've done, like 4 weeks at home together. And my middle son.
For lockdown?
Yeah, for lockdown. Yeah. And that was March last year. Troy and I had just been in Australia for an amazing conference, Freedom Fest in the Gold Coast, actually. And that's where I met Kezia and Logan, like crazy, like just the most crazy experience. And
for anyone who's listening, Kezia is a friend and a mentor of ours.
Yeah, yes. And she met her partner there, and we had met them at the same time. Like, it was crazy. And we came home to a lockdown. This was kind of when it all started in New Zealand for us. And the kids were at home, and my middle son reflected all the emotions that I was holding and didn't even realize it. Like, now I can see that that's what it was, but his explosive anger, rage, would punch, hit, fight, resist, and particularly with me. So like Troy's energy and my energy are very different. The easiest way to explain is introvert, extrovert, like we are yin and yang. And it was a really, really hard time for us. We tried all the things that logically as a parent you're supposed to do, timeouts and sitting with him and giving consequences, which none of these things worked. And there's been lots of things that we've done to support both ourselves and Levi. But the biggest thing that I've done has been to allow myself to feel what he is feeling. We did some tapping, which was the most incredible thing, because tapping is so freaking powerful. That karate chop point is incredible. And all of that stuff was only working for a period of time, and he would go back into this place, because what the root of what that was, and what I now understand, is how much our children reflect what we aren't prepared to feel for ourselves, particularly, between 1 and 7, but also up into that sort of 13, 14 years when they're coming into their own adulthood, if you will. They're sort of in that transition period. And it has been in allowing myself to go into rage. Rage has been in my family for generations. And in these past 12 weeks, I've spent a lot of time with support of someone else and on my own, clearing and being with rage without making it wrong or bad, which it has been generationally for a really long time. And that allows us, I've not got this perfect with Levi or with myself yet. I am here for the journey, not the destination. And the more I allow it for myself, the more that I can hold space for, and actually be really slow and calm with Levi when he's in it. And it either shifts him out of it really quickly or allows him to go there. And we're still in the process of how we make that really safe for our other children to both witness or maybe not witness. So that, because our little one particularly, allowing him to be in his joy is the best thing possible for him, because he's so young and he's often telling me how sad he is because he wants things, but it's such a superficial sad. So we just let him be in his sadness because he comes back to joy so quickly. Yeah, and it has been in enabling myself to cry, laugh, scream, rage in a safe way. Even Troy hitting the fridge showed our kids that, like, while we're all for emotional release, we kind of talked about how there's safe ways to do that, and you could punch your pillows or your beds or whatever. But them getting to witness that experience while I got to work through a lot of guilt and shame also enabled them to witness that we are all human, and dad and mum lose their shit sometimes too, and this is how we are allowing ourselves to process it, and so it's okay when you do.
Oh, it's so big, it's so huge. Like, this is such our generation conversation, isn't it, of, like, I guess, of awareness or self-development, personal development or something. Like, it's like, this is such a wave and it's actually in our bubble, like, and that's why I am so passionate about this podcast, Into the Nothing, because I feel like in these conversations, they can't be had enough.
So important.
So important, and such a game changer, and just knowing that life is so not linear. Like, you'll feel rage about something with your dad or your mum or your sister or something or whatever. Maybe it's even like don't even feel like it's part of this lifetime, it's a past life thing, and then something like money will turn up in your account, or like your best friend who you may be having a fight with will come and actually, like, message you and go, hey, what are you up to? And it's like, it's so not linear, and I think that's, everything touches everything. And so allowing ourselves to clean out, to clean up and be with all of our emotions and be in the messiness of them. Hey, like, just be so human, because, like, and it was like, even I had a friend reach out to me the other day who runs a really successful business, and we were at a gathering, and she pointed out, she's like, oh, I'd really love to talk to you about some stuff I'm seeing that you're doing online. Do I have your permission to share with you, like, my opinion? And I was like, yeah, and I was nervous, and she shared with me some stuff that she was like, I just, for you to speak to the audience that you really hear, I feel like, saying this isn't speaking to them, and it's actually putting a wall up, and they can feel the energy of what's actually behind that, which is like a bit of desperation and all this stuff. And I walked away just going, oh my God, amazing, I'm making a mistake. I was like, that's so good. I don't know, I literally left there going, oh my God, I'm making some mistakes. That's really good. I'm, like, learning. That means I'm in the arena. That means I'm on the dance floor. Like,
and it means that you're fully, like, I'm the same at the moment, like, the trusting of the mistakes and the trusting of how things get to pivot and change when things are reflected to you.
yeah,
like, that's the dance of coming out of fear of the unknown and going into that courage, like we talked about at the beginning, of being in courage. And I feel like there was something you said at the beginning, it's like this thread of, even though you might feel like you're not connected to the deepest part of you, the part that knows all and sees all and is trust, it's like, even if you're hanging on by a thread, that so deeply, you're so aware now that even in the absolute pits of grief or desperation or hurt or frustration or anger, there's this anchor point that doesn't let go anymore, that you just know there's something beyond this, and it's okay to be, and it's almost like a permission slip that it's okay to be in it, because actually that beyond what is beyond this. And every time I allow that, like, into this mentorship that we've been in for the past 9 months, I nearly didn't do it, and I felt some signs, and I kept the pull in my body was huge, even though my mind wanted to be like, this doesn't make any fucking sense. And the shift of trusting that and allowing myself to actually go through the experience of the fear and the uncomfortableness, and having to have that conversation with my partner, which has been an opening to many, many deep conversations and scary conversations, but the liberation has been beyond the fear. And going into that, we ended up, if we're talking about tangibles, we went from what we thought we were going to ask for our house, and we kind of were like, oh, actually, we're just going to ask for like 30,000 more. We're going to be like just a little bit more. Well, what we made was 80K more than what we thought we would, because the trust of knowing. And at that time, I didn't actually know, but there was this underlying, like, trust that I can't even describe. Like, now I get it, but it's really hard to put into words how much I just knew what this process was giving me. And now I'm just reflected to it. It's reflected all the time with, I don't know, clients that come in or people that choose to be in community with me. It's beyond incredible.
And it's like, and this is the whole thing with like trusting nothing, you know, it's like trusting the space in between. It's trusting what you can see with your internal eye and your knowing more than what you can see outside of you. It's like, you know, me working through my money stuff and like transforming my relationship with money. Like when I see bills come in now, I consciously just breathe and slow down, and I just, rather than go, oh my God, where am I going to get the money, and start to go into panic and overdrive, I just breathe and I choose what I know internally, like through my center, or just like what I deeply desire, that everything's just paid for. And I'm so grateful for the services. So it's like before having the money, before the thing, in a space of nothing, when nothing is shifting physically, can you just be with the nothing of your faith and the trust and just keep walking step by step, by little step, just staying on your path, because it's in that we build the resilience to connect with the truth of who we are. And there's just endless distractions in this fucking life. Like it is just, I feel like life is literally just like, here are 4 billion distractions away from your power. Yeah. And because if you actually connect with the power, if you disconnect from all of that and then connect with the truth of who you are, if you unplug from all of the garbage, everything that's going on inside you, every single opinion. And if you plug into and spend time with the truth of who you are through meditation, through breathing, through feeling your emotions, through dancing, through trusting your desires, you are going to become that motherfucking powerful, that we're going to have to kind of test you, because if you actually activate this level of power within you, you're going to be unstoppable.
Yeah.
And it can't just be for anyone. We need to understand that you're in integrity.
Yes. And I feel like what came through for me with that was like, even with your emotions, like the truth of who you are is not your emotions. Like I've been playing in this emotional clearing space for about 18 months. Didn't realize it until this reflection piece right here is so present for me right now. Maybe it's the end of the calendar year and us getting the opportunity to actually fucking reflect on how much things have shifted and how much we get to be in the magic of who we are, like who I am. Like it's fucking powerful. But in being in this emotional work and trusting the allowance of the emotion has been the acknowledgement that I am not the emotion. I am the riverbed, and the emotion is the water flowing through, you know, like I am everything, and the water just gets to flow. And it's like, I feel like in this spiritual place, and we talk a lot about all these tools that we have, but it's so easy to get stuck in the spiritual tools and in the, like, I need to be in my emotions, or I need to release my emotions, or whatever it is. Like, how can we just, like you said, like allow it all, but know that we are none of it. We are the nothing of any of it. Like we are not the security in our house and our land. We are not the connection to our family. We love our family and we love this place in us, but like for us, we've moved away from our family, and how much we've had to move through, and the trust that not being near our family right now doesn't mean we are not connected to them, and doesn't mean that they are us and we are them. We are so who we are, and we're the nothing. And actually we're so much more connected to the ones we get to be connected with now that are for us in this moment. And can we trust maybe where we're not as connected to some of our family, and that be perfectly okay for everyone, and know that the emotions that come with that mean nothing about us or about them, you know? Like,
yeah, I so relate, because I live in Queensland, and all of my family live in New South Wales. And you know, the last couple of years, the last 2-3 years, probably more, I moved to Brisbane, Queensland in 2018. So I've been up here for 3 years. And whoa, the last 3 years have been wild. Like, what the actual fuck? Oh my God, it's so crazy when I look back. I'm like, what the fuck? But one of the biggest things, particularly of this year, is how I've been initially, there's been like this wall up around being on the phone with people, and like just having lots of small talk and everything. There was like, it's so interesting. I feel like you start to get to a point where you start to connect with yourself, and your soul has literally just got her hands on the steering wheel, and you don't even have choices almost anymore. And it's like, I feel like I've been, and gonna just swear warning. I feel like I've had to be a bit of a cunt. I feel like I've had to be a bit of a cunt about my energy. And it's been like, torturous, and also torturous in that I've put so much guilt on myself that I should be there more for my friends and more for my family. But honestly, something in me is like, Patrice, you just need to spend so much time with yourself and just with Ted, my partner. And I'm in a different state. I didn't have a phone for 10 months of this year. And I literally have just like, I've just literally just gone, no. And I even had a mentor say to me last year, because there was a point where I was like, my nervous system was still like, I still could feel it, so overwhelmed. And I just need space. I just need to be in like a womb on my own. Like I just need a dark place where I can just rest and just be. I don't want to call these people. I feel guilty. I feel like I have to. I feel like I should. My friends, like they're going through this, like X, Y, Z, but I don't actually feel the pull. My mind feels guilty, but I don't feel the pull to actually be in contact with them right now, even though they're going through some shit. And I said this to my mentor, and she was like, Patrice, if it's for your highest good, it's for everyone's.
Totally.
Like if your soul is just asking for some space right now, and for you to just not actually contact those people, they don't actually need you. Like they don't want you to contact them either. There's actually like, and it's been such a process, but fuck, I am so close to being embodied in fully fucking trusting this. I think I actually do, of trusting the ebbs and flows of life, of the spaciousness where there's just periods. And I hope that for anyone who's listening and listening to Elika moving away from her family and just choosing her family, like moving away from a lot of her like family, her relatives, to choose her home family, her kids and her partner and the life. And you know, through the permission slip of me moving to Brisbane, I'm away from all of my family, and I didn't have a phone for 10 months of this year. And you know, right now I'm having like 10 days completely away from social media. I've got my assistant just doing everything because my soul just asked for it, and I'm just trusting and listening. And what I'm finding is those relationships I was so worried about, they're the most connected, unbelievable. There's more love and truth and honesty that in this flow that's coming back in, of connecting back with them as I head down to New South Wales for Christmas. The cleanliness and the purity of the relationships because of that is mind-blowing. It is a whole new relationship that the other one wanted to die. I had to die. The way that I was being in life is all had to die over a period of years. And there's this whole new purity and cleanliness within myself, and just the most loving discernment of yeses and nos and maybes and I don't knows, and I'm going to need a week to think about it. And just that's how I'm rolling.
And the
just,
liberation, like
whoa!
the liberation of self in that, like I'm feeling so tangibly in my body. And thank you for the reflection of the liberation in that, like in choosing so deeply yourself first, that actually it's for everyone. Like even just what you've reflected now, like how deeply it is for our family right now to be where we are. And knowing that, again, it means nothing about us and nothing about our family unless we choose to make meaning out of it, which is always a choice, right? And how can we let go of making meaning out of things and know so deeply? Like right now, I have been in the stance of choice of what I'm choosing to feel, think, and still allow everything that wants to be here. It's such a dance. And like you spoke about the humanness of the experience that we're here for, I feel like it's a pendulum and we always get to come back to center, but the pendulum swings and we just come back to center. And the liberation of choosing who we are, like we are choosing who we want to be and how we want this world to be by choosing ourselves first and showing up for ourselves or our family or our little pod, our little house, our little way of being, and coming out the other side. And I think I'm still in this process of the cocoon where I'm feeling your energy of coming out and being in the ebbs and flows. Like even when we're coming into Christmas right now, I'm thinking about Christmas and how I want to be. And I'm like, right now, I'm like, do I even want to go back to Hamilton to be there for Christmas? Like, is that okay that I actually just choose not to? Like if people want to come here and be with us, like, cool, but how can I choose so deeply that that's okay and means nothing about us, and our kids are actually going to be so held in the love that we have here for them that they don't need anything else, and then if they get more, we get more, and it'd be totally okay because that's so liberating.
I really enjoy, and I want to reiterate that point around, you know, the woman that we want to be, the life that we want to live in 3 years' time. We have to choose to be her now with like grit
Mm, mm.
Grit and grace simultaneously. Like, oh, and it's uncomfortable as fuck. It is so
So uncomfortable.
uncomfortable to start to choose. Like, for me to like I'm like, I just see my life being so abundant, and I working with like a few women at a really high level, at a really high level investment. It's super clean. It's super fucking transformative, but it is just so loving and simple. I don't go into like all the
Mm,
stuff that I feel like just it's not for me. I just feel like there's this simple refinement. And
mm,
my life is so spacious and abundant. I feel so spacious and abundant. So from almost the moment that my partner had his accident in 2019, I've chosen to be her every single day, even when I was so fucking from it. Like I was like, I'm not gonna do XYZ. And I've fallen off a million times of being in alignment with that path of like, or maybe I will just go and do a masterclass over here when my soul was just like, you don't need to do any of that. And I was
yeah.
just like, no, maybe I will because that's what everyone else is doing. And that's how I get to XYZ and that's how I get to this place. And I was like, no, you actually don't have to do all that shit. But I didn't listen for a lot of it. And that's okay. That's so part of it. Like it's the humanness, right?
100%.
But just, I just want to reflect and reiterate, like you're really choosing the life that you want to live in the future. And you're being her, you're being about it today in this moment.
Mm. Oh, it's so funny because I'm feeling the trigger of like, no, I'm not, but I actually am
You
every
actually
day.
are.
Like, and like, I feel like I'm really grateful for that reflection because we do fall off. We are, I feel like, I mean, we know that it's not linear. And even though we might be the riverbed, there's rocks, there's eddies, there's fucking all kinds of things that happen in that river, you know, like it's not linear. The river out to the ocean of the abundance of everything is not linear. And there's twists and turns, and maybe there's even setbacks in some way, shape, or form. And actually, it's all fucking for us, and we know this. But when we're in it, it can be really hard to see that you're actually still in alignment, being out of alignment, like, and the flow of what that looks like. And yeah, you reflected back how many times it's taken to say, to like not listen to yourself, to realize what it does, what it feels like, what it creates when you don't. And like, I mean, me too. There's a fucking amazing 14 days of content and people and leaders coming together at the moment. And I said yes, but I've not actually been in the energy because I actually don't think I was supposed to. Everybody was doing it and it feels so fucking powerful. And I know the transformations that are probably and are occurring in that space, and the transformations that are occurring for me when I'm not in that space. Mm. And I even had a client that said, actually, I'm not in alignment right now being in your program. And the shift of me knowing that and being able to hold space for the emotions that arose in my body, and also acknowledging, I mean, it was hilarious because the week we were talking about was speaking your truth, and she did that. And I was so fucking like the version of me that would have been triggered and made it mean so much about me just allowed the emotions to flow that day. And then when I spoke to her and I said, thank you so much, this is such a gift for you to be in your alignment, and for me, and you talk about cleanliness, like that is the cleanliness of life, choosing yourself, trusting yourself. And even if you've said yes, you get to say no. You get to actually be like, in the middle of something, I've done this before, and I haven't spoken it because I've been so uncomfortable. And like I said to her, this is such a gift for me, and you speaking and clearing and cleaning the energy here, so we both get to be in our highest alignment. And when she said yes, maybe it was an alignment, and coming out of it, and this dance of always trusting where the nudges are taking us, where the whispers are taking us, is like it's messy. And how can we be in the mess and like know the mess is so fucking, like my house literally reflects that for me right now, and I'm so okay with it. Like I'm not here to change anything, and like whether my family like it or not, like I'm okay to be in the mess right now because it's allowing the unfolding of so many beautiful things.
Allowing. Oh my God, it's my favorite word right now. Just, oh my God, just allowing it all. Like, fuck, it's even, and such a practice I've done over the past few years with a mentor of even like when we started this podcast interview, I can hear this fucking leaf blower or whatever it is outside. And I'm just in this place of it gets to be there. And then it just stops because I'm not in resistance to it.
No, that was the same for me with my kids. Like I'm like, but actually I just was like, okay, cool. I'm tuned in here and it's gone. I don't even know where they are now. Like,
yeah.
I mean, they're with my husband, but
Totally.
Yeah.
So I have two questions I want to ask you because I feel like this conversation is coming to a beautiful close. So the first question I want to ask you is, what are 3 things you absolutely fucking love about yourself?
That I trust myself to move into the unknown. I love the way I'm parenting my children. It is so gentle and so loving and so raw. And I love my body in the 110 kilos of beautifulness. Like actually being able to speak those words with actually nothing but love for my body is phenomenal. And I think particularly if there's any mums listening and how hard it is. I mean, women in general, we're so harsh on our body, and how can we be so gloriously in love with our body? Like there are things that are going to shift for me, and there's things that I'm changing constantly about how I show up, about how I dress, about how I look. And I am right now in the liberation of how much I love myself and my body and who this physical vessel is.
Oh my God. You just like, I'm literally just keep looking at you. I'm like, you're $1 million woman. Like I'm just looking at you just going, whoa, like it's all here. And it's also here. And yeah, it's just also here. And I feel like there's just this message around like all of these things that we need to be a part of. And there's just like, can you just come home to yourself and realize you already are the medicine for yourself and for your clients right now? Like it's just, it's all here. But thank you for that answer to that question. That was just brilliant. I just want more women to just be sharing the juice about themselves. But my question that I usually start with, that it feels really beautiful to end with, is what does Into the Nothing reflect, or what does it mean to you? What does nothing mean to you?
It's so funny because my mind's been pondering this all day, of course. But right before we came on this call, Into the Nothing is trust. It is the full trust of being in the darkness and knowing that you're so fucking held. That I think I said it somewhere in the podcast. It's like in this interview is when you go into the nothing, that's where everything comes from. Like, and how much we are everything when we trust that we are nothing. And I've been so confused by the statement. I mean, we've had a mentor reflect to us that I am nothing and therefore I'm everything. And only right now in the liberation of the end of that mentorship do I actually fucking get that going into the nothing means that I become everything, and realize there is no separation, that we are all everything and nothing together.
I just gotta let it all go to realize in the nothing that's all you actually ever needed and are anyway. Wow, that's so cool. Thank you.
And yeah, where the power of who we are comes from.
Yeah, the thing that's unnamed, that's so mysterious. The other day I was writing and it was just like the only thing that makes sense in this reality is the mystery.
Yeah. Oh, that's it. The nothing is the mystery. Like the words have gone. That just meant that there was something there for me in that.
And Elika, how can people like work with you or get in your world? Like what sort of people do you love to support?
Oh yeah, wonderful. So I'm a freedom coach. What I do is really, I mean, I used to say I guide you, but actually I just support you to guide yourself back into your deepest levels of liberation and freedom. And the ways that you can work with me right now are just one-on-one. I'm done with group programs right now. My soul's like, actually my highest aliveness is being in the one-on-one support space. It brings me so much joy, and actually that's where my soul loves to play. So I have a few different ways you can work with me. You can have one-off sessions to activate a piece of freedom that you deeply desire, or there's a package for 6 weeks, 3 calls, and really beautiful support, or there's a 3-month mentorship where we go really deep into freedom and liberation.
Amazing.
Starts within.
So many options there for anyone. And Elika is based in New Zealand, but obviously you can work with her online, and so you can be anywhere in the world. And so if you're feeling the nudge, like I just can't, if this conversation I hope has brought you anything, it's that trusting the nudge. It's like if you just feel the pull, if you just were to breathe and go outside and put your feet on the earth and breathe and go, oh my gosh, did that nudge, is that true? Is that coming from a centered, grounded place? And if it is, you just reach out to Elika, and I'll put her Instagram and Facebook connected to this in the show notes. So I just want to say thank you so much, Elika, for sharing your story, coming into this podcast, being who you are, shining so fucking brightly, being the mum that you are, being the partner that you are, being the courageous woman that you are, and the permission slip that you are for all women to choose themselves over and over and time and time and time and time and time again.
Thank you. And just reflecting back to you, just how much joy you've brought into my life, connecting and being in the space and learning so deeply about the nothing, about the womb, and how everything is birthed from this place. It has been a liberation for me, and I'm extremely grateful.
My pleasure. Thank you to everyone who has tuned in. And yeah, if you're feeling the nudge, please share this on your social media, tag Elika and I, share what it is that you loved or that you're curious about, and just know that we're open for any conversations if you want to reach out to us to either work with Elika or myself in any way, shape or form. So thank you so much. Sending you all so much love, and see you in the next episode.